There's a moment in Philip K. Dick's 1968 novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, in which the bounty hunter Rick Deckard wonders whether empathising with his android prey has put him at odds with the rest of the human race. He wondered, writes Dick, if any human has ever felt this way before about an android. That feeling of being out of sync with the world is a key element both of Dick's novel and of the film which followed, a film which was both behind and ahead of its time, which looked back to the future and redefined the way in which cinema would imagine the shape of things to come. It's a film which has been called everything from a fascinating failure to a cult classic, which looks more and more like dark prophecy as the years roll by and we move ever closer toward the edge of Blade Runner.
I'm going through the eye of a needle when I'm making a movie. I'm writing it, and you're either with me or you're not.
If only you could have seen what I've seen with your eyes. Yeah.
The filmmaking experience was wonderful. The film dealing experience was about as unpleasant as it can be.
I'd go onto the set and I'd be in another world.
The American people are basically anti-intellectual. They're not interested in novels of idea. And science fiction is essentially a field of ideas.
Philip K. Dick is really one of the great unacknowledged writers of our time. He was a Californian, and he wrote against the grain of what was currently accepted in the way of science fiction. Science fiction at that time was full of bold heroes going out into the universe, conquering planets, conquering whole solar systems. And there was this extraordinary man, Philip K. Dick, writing about really what was happening to him and to the drug culture in California with just a little twist of lemon.
This is the house in San Rafael where Philip Dick wrote Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, one of a group of stories optioned during his lifetime that finally made it to the screen after his death. Like so much of Dick's fiction, it shot through with a surreal paranoid psychosis that seemed to echo his own state of mind. But with its futuristic bounty hunter theme, it also provided the basis for a saleable sci-fi screen romp, or so it seemed to actor-turned-writer Hampton Fancher.
Philip K. Dick was a bit of a chimera. He was a bit of a monster. He was a bit elusive. You know, he was very appealing. I mean, he was very intelligent. He was very self-centered, kind of egomaniacal. He would do odd things. When he was talking to you, you got the idea that he was like theatricalizing him. Anyway, Hampton, so he was getting a message from the gods.
Phil, who had also made no bones about the fact that he had taken a lot of amphetamines early in his career to keep up the pace of being able to write as prolifically as he did, and had kept doing that for over a decade, it really became my conclusion that Phil, to a certain extent, was suffering from classic amphetamine psychosis.
It didn't seem stupid at the time because he was so brilliant. He was really smart. He was he was a scholar. He knew a lot of things, but he dramatized himself, and I thought he was kind of crazy.
The police once told me that I was a crusader, and they had no use for crusaders, but unfortunately, they didn't tell me what I was crusading for. I was afraid to ask what it was I was a crusader for, and they told me that if I did not get out of the county, I would be shot in the back or worse some night.
Really, the impetus of that novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, were some Nazi diaries that Dick had come across while doing research at the close stacks of the University of California at Berkeley in the library. And he was reading the journals of an officer, an SS officer, who had worked in one of these camps. And one of the entries really caught his attention. And the entry was, The screams of children keep me awake at night. And from that little seed, he began thinking, this person is not human. He cannot associate what he's just written. In other words, he's being bothered by the fact that they're exterminating all these thousands of people around him, and he can't get a good night's sleep. So from that, Phil inferred that basically these people weren't human. The Nazis were a synthetic organism. They were completely dissociated from human intercourse. And I think that really is what the spur of the entire Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep Blade Runner story started out as.
He acted, I said to him, in fact, I said, you act like I'm some guy with sunglasses and a cigar who's come up in a convertible trying to take advantage of you. I'm not. I'm trying to get you to make this movie. And he kept kind of dismissing that idea of Blade Runner, Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. And the last time I saw him, I was leaving. And I'm usually not this forward about these things, but I said, you know what? I'm not coming back because I don't think you like me. You really, in fact, I think you don't like me. And he said, no, you're wrong, Hampton. Hampton, you're wrong, you know. And he was kind of effusive at that moment, but I didn't go back.
Despite Philip Dick's paranoia about America in general and Hollywood in particular, Hampton Fancher finally succeeded in fashioning a screenplay based on Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. This script, which would be retitled Dangerous Days and then Blade Runner, was eagerly adopted by Michael Deeley, producer of such varied fare as The Italian Job, The Deer Hunter and The Man Who Fell to Earth.
I liked, for me, the originality of it. It was brand new stuff. It was plausible. I still think it's plausible. It contained a vision of the world which was possible. And I thought it was incredibly exciting, would be exciting on screen. Ridley was ideal in one respect, well, many respects, but one particular respect, which is that he has got the best eye of anybody directing film that I know about. I mean, anybody. And if you want to make a picture which looks stunning, as this picture had to do, then the best person you could get is Ridley.
Something personal happened in my life. My elder brother died, and I, to coin a phrase, freaked out. Felt I had to go to work immediately. And so I called Michael and said, you know that film of Hampton's, I'd like to do it. And so I went to Hollywood. And what I thought would be a fast, fix emotionally, I'd get involved in something, wasn't. And that developed into 7 months of discussion every day with Hampton coming to my house in LA, going through the pages blow by blow.
It wasn't until Ridley came in that it became an exterior film, a film that had a world. It was in hotel rooms, it was in basements, it was a $9 million movie that was all about interpersonal relationships.
Enhanced 224 to 176.
The thing about Hampton's screenplay was it was too enclosed within the confines of an apartment. The focus was, for me, how do we expand this film from your vision, which is internal. I want to follow Deckard outside. When I go outside, the world we see had better support a world that can actually reproduce human beings. And that's how it expanded. There was a moment where there's burnout with any writer. And Hampton, I think, said, I give up, I can't do this anymore. I need time out. And at that moment, I'd also been reading stuff of David Peoples, and I thought he came up with some very interesting dialogue.
They put me in this fantastic suite in the Chateau Marmont and sent a script over to me and said they'd be over in a couple hours. So I read the script, and my heart was broken because, they came in, they said, have you read the script? And I said, yeah. And they said, well, what'd you think? And I said, I think it's terrific. I said, I can't think of anything to do to improve it, right? And that was true. But apparently it was the right thing to say anyway, because they both sort of because I think they liked it too, but they said that Ridley had some thoughts about it or something, and so on and so forth. And so, to my amazement, I was hired to do a rewrite.
I think what happened is I said to Hampton, look, there's this guy around who can come and do some of the city speaking, the dialogue. What I want you to do is meet him. And you tell me, because I felt it was so much his now. This, you know, script, he's doing all the work. I'm just sitting there being creative. He said, okay. He was a little angry and a little hurt, I think, at the time.
Ridley never came right out and said, if you don't do what I'm telling you to do, then we'll get somebody else to do it. That never was said. Ridley was shy, he's manipulative, you know, whatever. He didn't tell me.
Hampton's an emotional person, like any other artist, and he can't have been happy at the whole idea of another writer coming in, and also at the changes that would make to his concept of the picture.
I was devastated. I started to cry. I said, what do you mean? You know, I got rat fucked. You know, I quit. I'm out. I'm gone. Then fuck you guys. And I called Ridley and said, I'm out of here, you know, and I was insane. I wanted my name off the picture, you know, it's like, I didn't want to be involved.
But I needed to move on because I was now 7 months into this, and I felt I'd invested all my life into it as well. And this was going to be my next film, whether anyone liked it or not. And so Hampton met David, and I think they're still friends.
I wouldn't talk to anybody, you know, in the company. And
I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it was fine because then towards the end, when they'd finished shooting the movie, they called me back in just before they finished shooting because it was a rooftop scene, all that stuff with gaff, you know. And so they asked me to come, David was working, I guess, or something, I don't know, because they asked me to come and rewrite some stuff. And that's when I rewrote you.
I guess you're through, huh?
Finished.
Harrison Ford was probably the most interesting leading man. If I say at the time, it's a little unfair because he's still very interesting, but he was that, and so we go for who's best.
I remember the first time I met him was in the Meridiana. Where he came late. It was like 10 o'clock, 10:15, and he was still wearing a leather jacket and a kind of wide-brimmed khaki hat, and he was unshaven. Of course, he was Indiana Jones, and had come off the set to come and talk, and I figured anything that Spielberg and Lucas were going to do was going to be a really good for this actor. So I thought, this is the guy, he's going to help us.
You remember the spider that lived in a bush outside your window? Orange body, green legs. Watched her build a web all summer. Then one day there's a big egg in it. The egg hatched.
The egg hatched,
And?
and 100 baby spiders came out. And they ate her.
Shaun was relatively unknown. She'd done very little at that time. And Ridley works on visuals extensively. He's a great, as a director, is one of the most brilliant visualists I've ever met in my life. And he saw something in her visually that he wanted.
She had to look great, as opposed to me just going with an actress who was a terrific. I'd always go with the actor first, actor, capability first, look second. But you know, stars usually have that kind of combination of both.
Do you like our owl?
It's artificial?
Of course it is.
Must be expensive.
Very.
That was the happiest or best casting period I've ever had on a picture, except for a Italian Job, which was different. It was wonderful because we had a completely blank page, really, and we went for people who were not comic figures, I mean not comic cuts type figures, were original looking.
I had such a ball on this movie. I found that the future and the tethered look, the destroyed look of the future, the fact that he photographed a future that was already old. And I heard him say this when we were talking about the script and how he saw the movie. I thought it was so fascinating. the future is old. It's not new.
We're no computers, Sebastian. We're physical.
I think, Sebastian. Therefore I am.
When we did the screen test, we had set dressing, there was rain machines, there was smoke, there was a, an alleyway with the garbage, and I mean, it was like lit like you wouldn't believe. I've yet to work on another film that is well lit and as well set designed as this screen tests were for this film. It was just insane.
What's your name?
Pris.
Mine's J.F. Sebastian.
Hi.
Hi.
Anybody that says Ridley's not a genius, just look out there, because there's more nationalities, more languages, and that's my opinion. It's more crowded than it was then.
The film was about society's influence in day-to-day living. It showed Los Angeles many years from now being a cesspool. And 20 years ago when that was made, as opposed to 20 years today, you can see where Mr. Scott's vision is coming to pass.
I wasn't able to visualize what that picture was going to be because I hadn't worked on it at that time, nor did I really know what Ridley was going to do with it much more than when we sat down and talked about his views of some of the things that he was going to attempt to do. But I just thought it was a good gamble and something I could be probably proud of if it comes out the way they hoped it would.
This picture, you're building a world which hasn't yet been invented. And you've got somebody like Ridley inventing a world, it's going to be quite some world. And that's the point of Ridley in this case. But also, of course, when it begins to cost money.